Now, people are calling this the rehearsal or the dress rehearsal for this big movement of Uranus into Gemini. I'm seeing it a little bit like the trailer of what's going to be a very fast-moving and exciting film that's coming up. Hello, I'm astrologer and tarot card reader Linda Wood, and I'd like to welcome you today to this very short video on Uranus going into Gemini, which is imminent. It happens on Monday, the 7th of July. Now, this movement of Uranus, a planet of awakenings, of shocks, surprises, lightning strikes, moves into Gemini, having been rather landlocked in Taurus on the 7th, as I've said. And it will only remain there until November of 2025, at which point it will retrograde back into Taurus and stay there until April of 2026, at which point it will move into Gemini and stay there for a period of around 7 years. So it will be very interesting looking at the things that arise as Uranus goes into Gemini, and some of the notes that they are sounding, some of the areas and issues that are arising, and seeing them as the trailer for the main feature, which will be coming and staying with us for 7 years from April of 2026. But in this video, I wanted to explore how Uranus can affect us very personally. So I will share my own situation with you. So people speculate about what Uranus into Gemini is going to bring. And I think ultimately the answers to that is we can't know fully because, there are things that we haven't thought of. There are those breakthroughs, those genius ideas, those things that we haven't foreseen that will be coming in. Some of them may be desirable, some of them may not be desirable. We have to wait and see. But I wanted to talk about what Uranus has been doing to me over the past few days, because I know that sometimes Uranus can cause a little bit of anxiety in people. So I thought sharing my story, which is very personal, might illustrate that the planets can often manifest very favourably for us. So I happen to have my ascendant on the 29th degree, which is the anaretic degree of Taurus. So right in the middle of these days as I'm speaking, Uranus has joined Venus, which is my chart ruler. I'm very much a Venusian, and Uranus has joined Venus right on the anaretic degree of Taurus, my point of ascendant. And you could get a little anxious about this looking at it. I mean, I've known it's been coming up, of course. And I thought, well, I wonder what that's going to mean. And you're thinking of things like changes in the way that you are presented, the way you present yourself, or maybe physical changes, which I thought, gosh, I hope I'm not going to have some sort of accident that's going to change me physically. Who knows with Uranus what this is going to be. Maybe I'll grow 2 heads. I don't know. But actually, it's manifested in an interesting way. So, a couple of days ago, I was planning a website and planning changes to this channel. And I got very strong inclination that it really was time to come out from behind the woodwork a little bit. I'm not naturally somebody who wants to push themselves to the forefront of things. And I feel like perhaps I've been hiding behind that name, the Crone Zone, where I've been able to bury myself a little bit, especially because, I've held a position of trust and responsibility in my community. And I suppose I was thinking, perhaps I'd better keep a little bit quiet about this lifelong passions of astrology and tarot, just daring to come out of the closet, this particular closet anyway. So it came to me very strongly that although I remain a happily married family person, that I really wanted to use my original name, and I wanted to use it properly. Instead of being Lynn Hill, I wanted to go back to an earlier name, my original name of Linda Wood. And that seemed very important. And at the time, because why, I don't know, we like this, I suppose, I didn't connect. Oh, this is Uranus going over my ascendant. This is this part of this change in how I'm presenting. And it was only, I think, a day later, I thought, of course, this is what it's all about. It's part of this rebranding of myself, if you like, with Uranus. And in recent videos, I have talked about the need for us to remember who we are. I mean that in a deeper sense than just an original name, of course. We do have a deeper identity, but certainly going back to a more core self that belonged only to me, that was not necessarily in service to my family, and a more original me felt like part of that journey. And also the need to step forward into being who we are, having the courage to do that. So that seems to be part of this. But also, I have to tell you, this is funny. It's funny to me. I don't know, you may find it funny too, because you won't perhaps look at me as a woman in her early 70s and think that this is necessarily something I might do. But tomorrow, I am going to a heavy metal concert, a day-long heavy metal concert. Now, I didn't seek a ticket for this, although tickets for it are very sought after. It's a big event in the metal world. The ticket found me. And it just seemed like something I couldn't refuse to do. It seemed, but out there for me, an exciting, different thing to me. A thing that, and if I say to people where I'm going to say, what, you're going to a heavy metal concert, So again, this is quite a Uranus coming over my ascendant type of event. Now, I am not saying that that's going to become a feature of my life henceforth, but again, it's another interesting pushing of the boundaries in a quite a Uranian, surprising, funny way of who I am and how I may be presenting. Now, I always use the new moons and the full moons, of course. I think they're such important portals for us, but I use those to set intentions. And when I look back at the intention that I set at the last new moon, it was to bring in some changes as Uranus passed over, and is passing right now, over my ascendant point. Now, I have to say, perhaps because of the conjunction with Venus, my ruling planet, I have felt incredibly good while this has been happening. And seemingly without me trying too hard, changes are coming in. I'm feeling the change. And quite honestly, I'm really, really liking it. And I think this touches on this fact that if we're aware of planetary energies and we know about them, then we can work with them. And the more we implement the energies of the planet, I think the less the planet needs to strike us externally, because we're going with the flow. And I think that matters. So excuse me for wittering on about myself. I'm only doing so to illustrate the fact that it's not necessary to be in a state of fear about these transits that can happen at very key points of your chart. It's not always possible to know in what manner they will manifest. I think that's something that as astrologers we have to put our hand on our heart and say it could be a range of manifestations. Anyway, I hope that Uranus's move into Gemini brings you some excitement, brings you some awakenings, and brings you, well, for me, it is excitement. I have to say, I do have an Aquarian moon, which I think chimes well with this. And I do have Uranus sitting right on my IC and nodal south node. They're together in my case. And it's always been like a rocket going up my chart. And a rocket, to be honest, I've always needed. So I hope that's a useful little exploration, and may Uranus's trailer into Gemini go well for you. It will be interesting to all of us, fascinating, I think, to see the kind of things that come up both personally and on the world stage. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.